Have you looked down lately and thought something's different? Maybe your penis looks smaller, feels softer, responds slower, or maybe it just doesn't feel like it used to. You haven't imagined it. This is real. And I'm going to say something that might shock you. After age 60, your penis begins to physically change, and if you don't know what's happening, you could lose more than just function. You could lose your confidence, your intimacy, even your identity as a man. I'm Dr. James, a men's health specialist with over 3 decades of experience treating aging-related sexual decline. I've worked with thousands of older men across the country, many of them confused, frustrated, and silently ashamed. Not because of what they did wrong, but because no one ever told them the truth. Most men believe it's all about hormones or desire, but aging affects the very structure of the penis, from the muscle inside it to the elasticity of its sheath to the blood flow that brings it to life. The scary part? These changes happen slowly, silently, and for many men they go completely unnoticed until it's too late. But there's good news. In this video, I'm going to show you how to spot the signs early, what changes are reversible, and the simple science-backed strategies to protect and restore your function. And near the end, I'll share the #1 regret I hear from men in their 70s, because it just might change the way you age starting today. Before we get started, if you haven't subscribed yet, I encourage you to do so now, and don't forget to turn on the bell so you never miss another important tip for protecting your health and manhood as you age. And if this topic speaks to you, just type 1 in the comments. If not, type 0 and tell me what you'd like to hear more about. I'm here to help you feel informed, strong, and confident again. So let's start with the part that no one ever talks about. The quiet changes that begin long before most men notice anything at all. You see, aging doesn't just arrive overnight. It creeps in slowly, reshaping the body from the inside out, and your penis is no exception. While the outside might seem the same, what's happening beneath the surface tells a very different story. Let's take a closer look at exactly what age starts to do and why understanding it now could make all the difference later. 1. The aging process, what you were never told. Most men think aging hits all at once. Your knees hurt, your hair thins, your back gets stiff. But when it comes to your penis, the changes are far more subtle and far more emotional. I remember the first time a man in his 60s sat across from me and whispered, "Doc, I just don't feel like myself anymore." He wasn't talking about energy or drive. He was talking about what was happening below the belt, and he wasn't alone. What so many men don't realize is that aging doesn't just affect your performance, it begins altering the very structure of your penis, often years before the symptoms become obvious. It's not a sudden switch, it's a slow, quiet erosion of tissue health, blood flow, and responsiveness. Your body begins to lose tone, elasticity, and muscle, not just in your arms or legs, but in the tissues that make up your manhood. Even the nerves become less sharp. The result? Things start to feel different, less full, less firm, less responsive. And that change can make you feel like less of the man you once were, even if no one else notices. The hardest part is that no one warns you. Your doctor might talk about cholesterol or blood pressure, but almost never about how age quietly reshapes something so personal, so tied to your identity. And by the time most men start to connect the dots, they feel like it's too late. But what's actually happening inside your penis? What physical changes are taking place, and why do they matter more than you think? Let's take a deeper look at what's really going on beneath the surface. 2. The real anatomy of change. Tissue breakdown. When I first started practicing medicine, I focused mostly on symptoms, what a man felt, what wasn't working. But as the years went by, I started paying more attention to what was happening underneath it all. And what I found was this: aging doesn't just slow things down. It rewires and reshapes the very tissue that makes your erections possible. Inside your penis are 2 sponge-like chambers called the corpora cavernosa. These chambers fill with blood to create an erection, but they're not just hollow tubes, they're lined with something called smooth muscle. That muscle is essential. It traps the blood, maintains firmness, and gives the penis its strength and structure. As you age, that smooth muscle begins to waste away. Not all at once, Not overnight, but bit by bit, year after year. I've seen it on ultrasound. In a younger man, the tissue pushes back. It has tension, tone, life. In some older men, though, it feels soft, almost spongy, like pressing on a loaf of bread. That change isn't just in texture, it affects how blood flows in and how long it stays. Without healthy muscle, you can't trap blood. Without trapped blood, you can't stay firm. It's that simple. And that serious. Add to that the breakdown of the tunica albuginea, the fibrous sheath that wraps around the penis, and you're looking at a double hit. The muscle inside weakens and the skin outside stops stretching the way it used to. But what's really driving this quiet breakdown? What causes that smooth muscle to shrink, that tissue to lose its structure? The answer for many men lies in something they've been losing for years without realizing it, and we're going to talk about that next. 3. Testosterone, the hidden fuel you're running low on. There's a quiet shift that happens in a man's body long before he feels it, and it has everything to do with testosterone. I've sat across from countless men in their 60s and 70s who tell me the same thing. Doc, I just don't feel like myself anymore. They aren't talking about just sex. They're talking about something deeper, a slow fading of vitality, of edge, of energy. And often it all traces back to this one powerful hormone. Testosterone isn't just about drive or muscle mass. It's the hidden fuel that keeps your penile tissue healthy and responsive. It maintains the smooth muscle inside the penis, keeps blood vessels flexible, and even supports the nerves that trigger sensation and arousal. But starting in your 30s or 40s, testosterone begins to drop. Not all at once, just a little every year. But after 2 or 3 decades, that drop adds up, and by the time you hit your 60s, your levels may be less than half of what they were at your peak. What's heartbreaking is how many men go years without checking their levels. They chalk it up to stress, to aging, to just getting older. Meanwhile, their erections weaken, their confidence dips, and they lose connection. Not just with their partner, but with themselves. But here's the good news. Testosterone can be measured, managed, and in many cases restored. And when it is, the results can be life-changing. Not just in the bedroom, but in every area of life. Still, testosterone isn't the only thing quietly robbing men of their strength. There's another change that almost no one talks about, but nearly every man over 60 begins to notice it. Let's talk about that next. 4. The girth loss. Nobody talks about. One of the most personal and least talked about changes that happens with age is the loss of penile girth. Not length. Girth. That feeling of fullness, of density, of pressure during intimacy. It's something many men notice, but almost no one wants to say out loud. I've had men in my office who danced around it using words like different or less solid, and I always know what they mean. Here's the truth. As you get older, the base of the penis often begins to thin. The shaft loses some of its natural firmness, and even the head, what we call the glands, can become narrower. You might still be able to get an erection, but it doesn't feel the same. It doesn't look the same. And for many men, that change hits harder than they expected, not just physically, but emotionally. I remember a man in his 70s who told me, "It's like I still show up, but with half my presence." That stuck with me, because what he was really describing wasn't just loss of function. It was loss of identity. Scientifically, girth loss often comes from a combination of smooth muscle breakdown, lower testosterone, and reduced blood flow. But emotionally, it creates a ripple effect on confidence, intimacy, and how a man sees himself in the mirror. But here's something many men don't realize. Not all girth loss is biological. In some cases, it's an illusion, caused by something far more common and far more reversible. And once you understand it, everything begins to make sense. Let me show you what I mean. 5. The illusion of shrinkage, pubic fat and pelvic changes. There's a moment I see often. A man in his 60s or 70s comes into my office and almost in a whisper says, "Doc, I swear it's smaller." He's embarrassed. He thinks maybe it's just in his head, but it's not. The feeling is real. What he doesn't know is that what he's seeing might not be true shrinkage, but an illusion, caused by changes happening around the penis, not inside it. As we age, our bodies start to redistribute fat, and one of the most common places men gain weight, especially after 60, is the pubic area. This soft fat pad right above the base of the penis begins to build up, and as it grows, it pushes down and outward, literally swallowing the shaft. The result? The visible part of the penis looks shorter even though the actual length hasn't changed. Add to that the weakening of pelvic floor muscles, a process that happens silently unless we actively train them, and now the angle, support, and even how the penis sits when flaccid begins to shift. It's a double illusion, covered by fat, unsupported by muscle. But here's the good news. This isn't permanent. With targeted exercises and even mild weight loss, men can visibly regain length and improve function without surgery or medication. I've seen it happen many times. And that renewed confidence? It shows up in their posture, in their voice, in how they carry themselves again. But let me show you what happens when those changes go untreated, what I call the softening of structure. It's more than just an illusion. It's a physical transformation I've seen far too often, and it reveals something deeper going on inside. 6. The wheat bread penis, a warning sign I see too often. There's a phrase I started using after years of seeing the same thing in my clinic, something I now call the wheat bread penis. It might sound strange, even a little funny at first, but it describes something very real and deeply concerning. It's the softening, the loss of internal structure, the way the penis begins to feel more like a sponge than a muscle. And once you've seen it, once you've felt it through a physical exam or ultrasound, you can't unsee it. I remember one patient in particular, a 68-year-old man who had been active, healthy, and full of energy just a decade earlier. He came in with complaints about weak erections, a sense that things just weren't the same. When I examined him, the tissue offered no resistance. It felt mushy, like pressing on soft bread. No tone, no tension, just a quiet loss of structure. This isn't just about sensation or function. It's a reflection of what's happening beneath the surface. Loss of smooth muscle, reduced blood supply, and declining testosterone all working together to weaken what was once firm, responsive, and alive. And what's most tragic is that most men don't notice the change until it's advanced. They adapt, they adjust, they settle. But the body doesn't forget, and unless you take action, that softening only gets worse. Still, there's hope, because if you catch it early enough, the process isn't always irreversible. The key is understanding what drives it, and acting before it's too late. And that begins with a simple question. Is it really aging? Or is it something you still have the power to change? Let's talk about that next. 7. Can you reverse it? Yes, but time is critical. One of the hardest parts of my job is watching a man realize he waited too long. Not because he didn't care, but because no one ever told him he had options. So many of the men I see come in thinking the changes they've experienced, softer erections, less sensitivity, reduced size, are permanent. They've been quietly grieving a part of themselves, thinking it's just the price of growing older, but it doesn't have to be. Yes, aging affects the penis. That much is true, but what most men don't realize is that some of those changes can actually be slowed, stopped, and even reversed if you act in time. I've seen men in their 70s and 80s improve their function, sensation, and confidence, not by chasing miracle pills, but by understanding their bodies and making the right changes consistently. In one study I often share with patients, men with low testosterone underwent hormone therapy for a year. Over time, their stretched penile length increased. Not dramatically, but enough to matter. More importantly, they reported better erections, stronger sensation, and renewed desire. Sometimes the gain isn't just in centimeters, it's in how they feel about themselves again. But it's not just testosterone. Lifestyle changes, Improving circulation, reducing inflammation, strengthening the pelvic floor all play a role. The earlier you start, the more of yourself you preserve. Still, most men don't know where to begin. That's why I developed a clear 4-part system I use with my patients, a foundation for longevity, strength, and better sexual health as you age. And once you understand these 4 pillars, you'll finally have a roadmap to reclaiming what you thought was gone. Let me show you what they are. 8. The 4 pillars of penile longevity. Whenever a man sits across from me, frustrated by what's happening to his body, I don't offer him quick fixes. I offer him a foundation, what I call the 4 pillars of penile longevity. These are the core areas every man over 60 needs to pay attention to if he wants to keep his strength, sensitivity, and confidence intact. The first pillar is circulation. Without healthy blood flow, nothing else matters. Your penis is a vascular organ. It needs steady, strong flow to become and stay erect. Walking daily, eating nitrate-rich vegetables like beets and spinach, and cutting back on processed sugars can do more than you think. It's not flashy, but it works. The second is testosterone. This hormone is more than a number. It's the fuel behind everything from tissue health to libido to energy. If your levels are low, addressing that one factor can have a ripple effect through your entire system. Third is pelvic floor strength. Most men ignore these muscles, but they play a crucial role in erection quality and bladder control. A simple Kegel routine, done correctly, can transform function within weeks. And finally, metabolic health. Belly fat, high blood sugar, and inflammation all accelerate the very decline we're trying to slow. When you start eating for hormone balance and longevity, your entire body responds, especially where it matters most. These 4 pillars aren't complicated, but they are powerful. And when a man commits to them, I've seen changes that medicine alone could never produce. Still, for many, the real transformation doesn't come from knowledge. It comes from regret. There's one thing almost every older man tells me when it's already started to slip away, and if you're listening now, you have the chance to avoid that. Let me tell you what it is. 9. What older men wish they knew sooner. Over the years, I've had the honor of hearing hundreds of stories from men in their 60s, 70s, and 80s. Some of them came to me early, ready to take control, but many came too late after years of quiet frustration, believing that what was happening to their bodies was just something they had to accept. And nearly every single one of them has said the same words to me in one form or another. I wish I had known this sooner. They wish they had known that what felt like decline wasn't just aging, it was preventable. That the loss of sensitivity, firmness, and confidence wasn't a life sentence. That there were things they could have done in their 50s, even in their 40s, that might have changed the entire course of their intimate lives. I've had men cry in my office not because they couldn't be helped, but because they felt like no one ever told them the truth. Not their doctors, not their friends, not the commercials that promised instant fixes, just silence. And in that silence, they suffered. But here's what I want you to take from their stories. You still have time. Whether you're 60, 70, or even older, your body is still listening. It's still capable of healing. The key is starting now. And as we close this conversation, I want to leave you not just with knowledge, but with something you can do today, tomorrow, and every day forward to protect what matters most. Because change begins with one habit, one commitment, and one choice. Let me show you exactly how to begin. 10. Final message. Your daily commitment begins now. You've heard the truth most men never do. How aging changes your body, what it means for your manhood, and what you can do to fight back. We talked about structure, testosterone, circulation, strength, and the silent regrets of men who waited too long. But now it's your turn. I've spent over 30 years walking this road with men just like you. I've seen the heartbreak of inaction and the transformation that comes when a man finally takes control. This isn't about perfection, it's about momentum. Start walking, eat for blood flow. Ask your doctor about your hormones. Do the simple things every day that keep you strong where it matters most. You still have time. You still have power, and you still have every reason to live with strength, intimacy, and dignity. So take the first step because the man you were never left. He's just waiting for you to return.